Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. I am Eleonora Salas, Director of Studies at ICANA Binational Center in Córdoba, Argentina. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the 12th webinar of Teaching Capacity Building 2022, a professional development program sponsored by the US Embassy that we started hosting in 2020 in response to the challenges we faced at the beginning of the pandemic. If you have attended the previous webinars, you already know that this program consists of 15 webinars presented by committed and hardworking Argentine English teachers that are alumni of US-sponsored professional development exchange programs. These teachers are all sharing their experience and best practices as educators and language teachers in their quest to create environments that support engagement for learning. We believe that no matter where we are in our learning journeys as teachers, we can always learn something from the journey of others. So we sincerely hope that these presentations will inspire you to bring new perspectives into your current teaching practice, whether this is in person, online, or hybrid, and that they will help you create exciting learning experiences for your students. We are deeply grateful to the US Embassy, the Regional English Language Officer, all the alumni presenters, and the Argentine Network of Binational Centers for their support in the organization and delivery of this program. During the presentation, you are welcome to type your questions and comments in the chat section for the presenter to address them. Also in the chat section, you will find the link to download your attendance certificate. You're also welcome to say where you are joining us from. It's nice to have you all participating. Now I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Ricardo Martín Ramírez, who has already presented twice this year, and he will be presenting Talk It Out, Kickstarting Conversations about Equity and Inclusivity in the EFL class. Ricardo is an International Visitors Leadership Program scholar. He holds a Master of Arts in English from Washington State University. At present, he teaches literature classes at UADER. UADER is Universidad Autónoma de Entre Ríos. His main research interests include intersectional literary studies, feminist rhetoric, critical race theory, queer theory, and all things that are ed-tech in language extraction. Thank you very much, Ricardo, for sharing your expertise today with all of us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eleonora, for that kind introduction. And thank you all for attending. I just checked out the chat, and we have people from all over the world, as you anticipated, Eleonora. So we have people from Ghana, and obviously people from Argentina, and from Iran. So yeah, welcome all, and thank you for joining this talk. This is my last talk in this series of talks, so it's a farewell for me today. I'm more than excited to keep on sharing my insights, also my teaching experience with everyone who has decided to attend this talk. So I promise that I will try to keep it short and simple so that you can guys follow my presentation in the most simplistic, practical way. If you have a question about the things that I am discussing, you're more than welcome to type them in the chat. And yeah, towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to be sharing with you the links that I'm going to be addressing or mentioning today, so that you can keep a very accurate record of the things that I will be tapping into. So that said, that being my preamble, I'm more than ready to start now. So today, my presentation is titled Talk It Out, Kickstarting Conversations about Equity and Inclusivity in the EFL class, right? And as usual, I have three very simple and easy to follow goals for my presentation, right? The first one is to cascade new knowledge. Usually when you do courses sponsored by the US Embassy, this is one of the prerogatives that you need to explore, right? So the idea is that if you receive actually a scholarship and you're able to study and you're actually able to, take up any of these instructional courses, usually you're supposed to or expected to cascade your knowledge. So that would be, opening the doors of the things that you have learned, pass on the knowledge and just pay it forward so that we create a network, a matrix of teachers helping teachers. So that's also one of my goals today. I will be cascading my teaching knowledge, my teaching expertise with you. I would like to navigate today also the question of intersectionality in the EFL class. So we're going to be talking about that concept, yes, which comes from a field of study that I actually experienced during my MA. I wrote my thesis on, feminist rhetoric, analyzing the works of an Argentinian author. So I'm going to bring also that kind of theoretical background as a support for my presentation today. So the question of intersectionality will be addressed in the things that I will be sharing with you. And most of all, we're going to be talking about possible ways in which you can address minority groups in the EFL class so that you give them, more visibility. Yes, the idea is that we talk about minority groups or minoritized groups, because, for example, today, and this is something that you should know, I have decided to navigate, the possibility of reinscribing women in history, in current history, women who have been, glossed over, or women who have been forgotten, sometimes intentionally, but male-dominated kind of discourses. So today we're going to be reanimating those texts or those people by talking about them. So yes, we're going to be talking about minority groups, or sometimes, and even today, about minoritized groups, which, that difference in language is very important, because one, it's a minority group is obviously circumscribed to a small number of people, coming together in one group of people. But then if a group is minoritized, you're already talking about the intentionalities of a dominant group that doesn't really want the other groups to, come up on stage. So yes, today, and this is part of my preamble, I'm going to be talking about how to give power, how to give the floor to minoritized groups as well in the EFL class. All right. So I hope you can bear with me, and this would be the things that I would be addressing today. But since, one of the goals of my presentation also is to learn from you, we're going to start with a quiz, not a quiz, actually a poll. I'm going to poll you out, yes? And so for this reason, I'm going to share with you in the chat a link to a survey that I would like you to respond for me very quickly. So you have 5 questions in the chat now. I'm going to share the link to this, and I would very much appreciate it if you would join me here, right? So yes, I have 5 questions for you. And can you guys join me here? Can you hear me okay? Are you following? Are you there? Can you use the chat to let me know? Yes, you're coming here. Hi, Marcela. Hi, Miriam. Irene. All right, good. All right, so I'm going to ask you some questions. Yes, so join please this survey. The first question, yes, you have to obviously write your name and then click on submit every time you are ready with your answer. And then you're going to move on to the rest of the questions. Yes, the first question that I have for you is, what's your favorite gameplay? And you can consider 2 options. Digital games, yes, which would be video games, or board games. So it depends on the kind of school that you belong to, yes? If you are old school like me, then maybe you like board games. If you are younger than me, then maybe you like digital games. So can you guys write your answers for me? What's your favorite gameplay or board game? All right. Yes. All right. Did you guys see the link that I shared before? So I need you to join me there in that link, yes, and answer the questions from me. So if you haven't seen it, please join me here. So what is, oh yeah, I have just shared the link in the chat again. Can you please join me here? Yes. Of course, yeah. I have shared the link now. So can you guys join me on this survey? All right, some of you play Monopoly. I can see your answers now. Very good. Here is the link. All right, Monopoly. Some of you used the chat and said Scribble. All right. Some of you are raising your hands. Yeah, I can only see your messages in the chat. So, all right, I can share the link again. Some of you are not seeing the link, so the link is in the chat. All right, some of you play cards, Monopoly. All right, here's the link, everyone. Yes, the link is for everyone. Yeah. All right. Here's the link. Yeah, I was using the Q&A chat. So some of you say that, okay. Here you are. All right, can you guys see the link now? All right, okay, good. Yeah, I was sending, sorry about that. That was on me. I was sending the link to the Q&A section, right? Okay, so I have more input now. Sudoku, cards, Monopoly, all right. Digital games, you prefer, it's okay now. Thank you, Joseph, for the confirmation. All right, board games, chess, Scrabble. All right, very good. So most of you, well, there's a divide, let's say. Some of you play digital games, some of you play board games. All right, okay, very good. Now, let's move on to the second question. And now you have to vote. Which video games would you play online? Adventure video games, first-person shooters, third-person shooters, puzzles, block building. All right. All right, adventure has it. Okay, puzzles have it now. All right. So most of you would like to, or usually play adventure games. And if you had to play an online game, you would play adventure games. All right. Interesting insight. All right. Next question for you guys. Have you ever heard about these people? Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. What do you think? Yes, no. Okay. All right. So these are, you know, the founding fathers of rhetorics for the Western civilization, right? So yes, they talk about rhetorics and they are great philosophers of all times, right? So most of you have heard about them at least. Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good, guys. All right. Now, next question for you. And this is the one that is going to trigger off our conversation today. Have you ever heard about a woman named Aspasia in world history? 7% says yes. Most of you say no, I haven't heard about her. 6% now, so the number is becoming smaller. All right, good. All right, 5%. Most of you don't know about her. Okay, good. This is actually good for me. It's not good in general, but we have to, you know, work our way around this situation, right? So this is a very low percentage, but it's good for this presentation today. All right. Okay. Now, the last question I have for you. Have you ever heard about the video game Assassin's Creed? And okay, most of you haven't heard about this game, but some of you have. Okay, so the name maybe is not very inviting, right? Some of you are using the chat, yes, yes, no, no, okay, all right. So maybe some of you have heard about it, but most of you haven't, right? Okay, so the game is not very inviting, as I said. If I say Assassin's Creed and you don't like to, participate in these kind of games because you might have the perception that they are violent, well, then maybe it's not a good invitation, right? That's another thing that happens when we're talking about video games. So today I am going to be talking about video games, yes, and I'm going to try to connect this with, a number of variables, but mostly I'm going to be talking about how you can use video games in the classroom or the story about video games just to, do a different kind of work. Mostly what we're going to be working about is about minority groups, but we need context. So today I'm going to walk you through this kind of adventure, right? So we're going to be combining things. As I said before, we need to find intersections, right? That is intersections that will pave the way for us to ask bigger questions in the EFL class. All right. Very good, guys. Thank you for all this feedback. This is very useful for me. Are you guys still there? Are you following? Sorry about the link before, but you were able to answer all my questions. So I have all this data now, and this is amazing. All right. Are you still there? Are you still alive? All right. Yes, you are following. This is amazing news. All right, all right, all right. So now I'm going to walk you through a series of things that I actually planned for my students at some point, material that I have used with my students, and I'm going to walk you through the process of it. Yes? All right. Good. So as you can see, in a kind of like pre-stage to my class, I already asked you questions about one character in particular. Yes, I ask you questions about your level of connection to games in general, board games or digital games. I ask you about one video game in particular, which was Assassin's Creed. I'm going to be talking about that now. And I ask you about great philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and then also about Aspasia. But the one that most people don't seem to know is Aspasia, right? So this is the first kind of curveball I'm going to throw your way. Aspasia is actually, acknowledged in one of Plato's works as his personal trainer. So she was an amazing rhetorician, and Plato actually acknowledges her in one of his dialogues, right? And also she was a trainer to Socrates. So the odds are that she was a very smart woman who was able to train the most important philosophers of the Western world, right? So first question for you, can you use the chat for me? Why do you think we don't know about Aspasia if she was such an important, philosopher? Can you use the chat for me? Why do you guys think that we don't know about her? And you guys are saying, well, she's a woman because she was a woman, all right? So are we only talking about this gender variable here? Patriarchy, Ivana says, all right, okay. We're talking already about the patriarchy, male dominant perspectives. The history was written by men, yes, so they highlighted men, of course. Yeah, that's a very rational explanation, very logical one, absolutely. The role of women in history has not always been recognized. Exactly, we don't know much about women. And women have participated in the biggest events of the world, of world history, but we don't know much about them, yes? We don't know exactly what they were doing, right? So yeah, they have remained in very silent places, right? The role of women in history has not yet been recognized. Sadly, as it sounds, because she's a woman. All right. So we are talking about a gender positionality here, maybe the negative part of her, gender and power. Heartwarming greetings from Cameron. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. All right. Yeah. So you guys have it very right. You got it right. So why are we not aware of the existence of Aspasia? Well, yeah, she has been glossed over from history intentionally. The fact that she was the trainer of the most important philosophers of all time, and she's not mentioned anywhere or in very few places, obviously denotes some kind of intentionality. So I built a class where we're going to do just the opposite. We're going to navigate, yeah, it could be considered like hot waters, but we're going to navigate just the opposite process. So we're going to bring her into question. We're going to bring her on, the scenario of our class with the intention of reanimating her story. Yes. So one thing that usually feminist writers do when they compose their own materials is to reanimate the lives or reinscribe the lives of women who have been glossed over in history. So today, by working around this, famous character in history, yes, we're going to bring her back, right? Yes. This is my very intention today. So how can we work around Aspasia in our English class? Well, I have some ideas. These ideas are not final. They are obviously not perfect, but I want to navigate this with you because it works with my students and they keep always wondering why they didn't know about this in the first place. And, they want to know more about this. And usually what they end up doing is actually playing the game that we're going to be discussing today. So first thing in this kind of didactic path that I devised for my students is to have the students do a speaking kind of, activity. I already did it with you, but I polled you out. I facilitated a survey just to know your opinions about video games and just to see if you actually play video games, right? So this is the same, right? The idea is that the first initial step into building a conversation about a female character that was, intentionally forgotten in history is to contextualize the conversation. So our first conversation is about video games. I already asked you this question. And then what I usually do is to ask my students to see the trailer of a video game, and they would have to let me know if they would actually play that video game and why. So now I'm going to be sharing with you in the chat, in the right chat section, a trailer to a video game. This is very short and it's a puzzle game. And I would like guys to have you watch this trailer and tell me if you would play this video game, if you find it appealing and why. So can you very quickly look at, the trailer of this game and let me know in the chat if you would play this game? Yes. All right. Yes. If you have a question, right, can you guys write it in the chat? I haven't played it, says Sarah. Okay, you haven't played it yet, right? Okay, Gorogoa is a puzzle. Yes, Gorogoa. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle game. All right. How about the rest of you? Have you seen the trailer? Is this a game you would play? Why? You haven't played it yet. It's colorful. You would like to try. You've never seen it. Okay. All right. Yeah, this is a puzzle game. And, usually, most of my students these days, I have only a few that would choose puzzles to play video games. Most of them are, action oriented. So they would discard puzzles. But the idea is that we are taking them out of their comfort zones, which would be shooters or maybe more violent games. And we are asking them to think about games that, bring forward a little kind of, or a different kind of scenario for them, right? So you would like to play it, Alejandra says, because it's intriguing, it's eye-catching. I don't play video games. All right, Maria, well, maybe we can get you to play a game after we talk about Aspasia. You haven't played it yet. I don't have any experience. Well, maybe you can develop some experience. Sulema, why not? All right, I would play it because it looks like Minecraft. Yes, it's a little bit strategic. Yeah. All right, some of you don't find it appealing, maybe because you are in different kinds of games. All right, good. So what are we doing here? We are asking our students whether they like video games or not, the kinds of games they like, and usually puzzles, like, it's interesting that they find puzzles, and those that are not into, more of like reflective or thoughtful games, they usually discard these types of games. But Gorogoa is a very interesting game. It's very visual. It has a beautiful design. So, you're by asking the students to watch this trailer, you are already decentering them from the things they do every day. Yes. And to talk about a spatial, we need to decenter those comfort zones that our students already have, right? So first step, we ask our students to do some speaking skills. You have them watch a trailer about a very specific game like Gorogoa, right? And you introduce this question silently. Have you ever played Assassin's Creed? Which was already a question that I asked you in the survey. And most of you said no. Well, 40% of you said, yes, I have heard about Assassin's Creed. Yes. So what can we do also as a pre-reading task, because we are going to read a text? Well, you can work on some vocabulary that you'll find in the text, just in anticipation for that. I'm not teaching here, or I'm not disclosing anything that we teachers don't do. Yes, so this is like not rocket science, right? This is no brainer. This is what we usually do. But I want to show you the complete development so that you can introduce, a conversation in a more organic way. So after you do a pre-reading task with some vocabulary items, yes, you can have your students actually learn more about Assassin's Creed. Yes. So this is a text, a very short text. Yes, I have the link here. I will share it later with you. It's from Britannica. And so just briefly put, Assassin's Creed is a game that, at first sight, you might deem it as being violent, as being something that maybe I'm not into this because you have to kill people. But actually, what the game promises is that you have to be more strategic than that. Yes, even though you might be hired as an assassin or as a hitman, you have to avoid confrontation. So already there you have a level of strategy, which is interesting in and of itself. So the game promises that you will have to become an assassin, but then is Gorogoa free, says Maria Florencia in the chat. Yes, now it's free. In the past, you would have to pay like $1. And now, yes, you can get it for free. All right. So what are we going to do now? We're going to read about Assassin's Creed. Yes, I'm going to walk you through the text so that we have more time to get to the other sections. Yes, but in Assassin's Creed, as I said before, if you read this, this text, what you learn is that the game is more about strategy. So you're not necessarily supposed to confront with other people in the game, but rather you need to avoid confrontation. Already there you have, as I said, a very interesting level of strategy. Yes. So what is the storyline of this game? In this game, you have to play as the bartender, Desmond Miles. Yes. And he uses his own DNA to travel in time. So this is a good scenario to start talking about people from the past that had been erased from history. Why? Well, the protagonist of this game travels back in time through his DNA, and eventually he has some disruptive moments in his adventure, right? Because sometimes reality kind of like intervenes in the game. So maybe he is traveling in time, because he is actually plugged to a machine to do that. And he's traveling in time, but then like he has some situations in modernity. So for example, the phone rings, and so his traveling experience is actually interrupted or disrupted. So this is the context. Yes, are you guys following? Are you following my very fast storytelling? Are you keeping the most important parts of Assassin's Creed? Yes, are you there? All right. Okay, you are following. All right. Thank you for this confirmation in the chat. All right. So Assassin's Creed, a very interesting game. Yes, I want to actually do justice to this game because it's very intriguing for me and it has an amazing storyline. So as a literature person, I find this game very interesting. All right, so Desmond Miles, the bartender, travels in time, gets interruptions, and then he has to fight some enemies, right? But the idea is that he avoids confrontation, so he has some superpowers. Yes, he has the power of blending into the crowds and not being noticed. And also he has a supervision as a superpower. So in this way, he can detect the enemy and also go unnoticed, right? This game has received many awards because of its storyline, because of the graphic designs, and they have devised also prequels and sequels because the game has been very successful. The fandom also has helped them create games that are actually required by the audiences. So when I'm talking about the fandom, yes, I'm talking about the fans. So the fans at some point said, well, we need Assassin's Creed to do such and such thing. And so the Assassin's Creed creators have actually listened to them, and they have created games in the light of those requests. So yeah, the game has, the game has a game, a game is actually the followers. So yeah, this game has game, and they have listened to their comments. So they usually have resignified the game in the light of the comments coming from the audiences or the players or the gamers, right? So up to here, we have the story about the game. I have already asked you questions. You have told me that, well, some of you would like to play the game, and some of you wouldn't like to play the game. I also exposed you to Gorogoa. So the context of the game is already out there, right? We are talking about this. Then someone is mentioning here Call of Duty, another very interesting game. Yes. So in Assassin's Creed, why are we talking about Assassin's Creed, and how are we connecting it with Aspasia, right? So now comes the link. So in our next part of the class, what we can do is to have our students navigate some interesting information about Aspasia, right? So most of you, 90% of you said, well, no, I haven't heard about Aspasia. So who was Aspasia? Other than just your very common and expected Google search, we can read a little bit about Aspasia, yes? So I created this text for my students so that they would get like the basics of it. A central character in Assassin's Creed is Aspasia of Miletus, but what most people don't know about her is that she was a notable woman in ancient Greek history. As a matter of fact, Aspasia was a smart rhetorician who trained important statesmen like Pericles, and her name is mentioned in the works of Plato and Xenophon. It's worth mentioning that the reasons as to why such an important woman has gone unnoticed in world history remain a mystery. Evidently, the designers of Assassin's Creed have striven hard to do any undercover attempts of historical erasure. So why haven't you guys heard about Aspasia if she's such an important woman? Well, most of you gave me the answers already, yes? Because yes, she was a woman in the first place. And second, even though she had an important role in training these men in terms of how they could use their rhetoric strategically, how they could use their discourse, persuasively, we don't know about her. But the good news is that inside this game, Assassin's Creed, Aspasia is a character, right? So the creators of these games, probably a bunch of nerds that like, mystery and like things that no one knows about, included Aspasia in the game, yes? Why do you think they included Aspasia in the game, and what do you think she does in the game? Let's see if you can guess. What does Aspasia do in this game? How does she serve a purpose in this game? Can you use the chat to let me know? So why do you think Aspasia has been included in this game? What do you think is her role in the game? Maybe her wisdom. All right, Florencia, you got it right. Wisdom, yes, they're going to use her intelligence here, absolutely. Does she give advice, or is she a mentor? Yes, you got it right, Eleonora. Very good. She is a teacher, so probably is she performing as a teacher in this game to show the importance of a minority? Well, yeah, probably the designers took that into account, but yes, you guys are actually locating her in a very good spot. And yes, you're actually getting it right. Perhaps she guides the main character's path or journey to the past. Absolutely, as the guidance, as a as a mentor, because of her wisdom. Yeah, patient because of the rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions, right? Well, she's very well versed in that, and she's good at rhetoric. So yes, maybe she's asking rhetorical questions. She's the one that helps players to move on the stages. Maybe the character got some inspiration from her. She's an advisor. Yes, you actually got it right. Now, the tough point about this game is that Aspasia, yes, is usually someone you need to talk to in order to pass on to the next stage, right? Because as you are playing, there are two things you need to know. When you're playing this game, sometimes remember modernity interrupts, so your time traveling is interrupted, and you have to start again, right? And you appear in a very different place as the one where you were sent originally, right? So what happens when you meet with Aspasia? Again, you have to negotiate with her. And she's probably the toughest negotiator because she's a rhetorician, right? But yes, she will give you access to the next stage if you do, or if you do respond to her questions correctly, right? In order to be inclusive so that women can also play. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this game is about strategy, and at the same time, if you need to go into the advanced up stages of this game, you have to talk to this woman who is very smart, right? So why are they doing this? I mean, I haven't seriously talked to the designers of this game, but what makes me really happy about this is that, first of all, they consider her as one of the most important characters. You have to negotiate with her, so they are reanimating her as a rhetorician, right? And yeah, this is what you can do in this game, right? So how do you feel about Aspasia and this game now? Would you play now Assassin's Creed just to see what happens with Aspasia? Is this something that you would put on your agendas right now? What do you think? Can you guys use the chat to tell me? I'm very intrigued. I'm getting interested. I'm curious now. All right. Yeah, this is exactly what happens with my students, right? Whenever I talk about her, it's like, oh, wait, I didn't know that. I didn't know who Aspasia was. I have talked to her, but I never knew, right? So yes, by doing this, by bringing Aspasia and insisting on her, we are bringing her back into our history. We are reanimating her role in history. Okay, what else can we do with Aspasia now? Let's move on with this design that I have for you. So we already have some information about Aspasia. This is the graphic that you have. The graphic you see here on the right is actually the design that you find in the game. This is what Aspasia looks like for the graphic designers, right? And you can work on speculation, grammar tidbits, right? So why was she erased from history? Why was she glossed over? Why was she left out? So you can obviously ask your students to speculate using, sophisticated grammar forms like, modal verbs combined. And again, this time you have a context which is very fresh in their minds. And so, the idea of like navigating grammar in context is actually a very natural choice here, right? So it's not that we taught the grammar before, now we are speculating, but already in the path of having a conversation about historical figures that have been intentionally left out of history. All right. So I already gave you some information about Aspasia, already gave you information about the game, but now I want you to work with a video so that you get your own picture, right? Because also if we want to empower our students, they need to have their own version of history. So now I'm going to ask you to watch a short video that talks about Aspasia of Miletus, and then we are going to answer some questions just to wrap up our presentation. So this is the video I want you to watch. Take your time. Yes, you can also use the chat as you watch the video and you learn more things about her. Yes. And then we're going to do one final exercise. So have you guys received the, can you see the link? Is it working? Are you watching it right now? Yes. All right. I'm glad you're following. All right. Watch that video and let me know what you see, what you've learned. And it all harkens back to the beginning of this presentation, which was all about navigating, the conflict that you can try to resolve in the class when you talk about minority groups. In this case, we are talking about important female figures in history that, have gone unnoticed or no one knows about. All right. So what do you guys think? Is the video easy to understand? Do you think this is a video you could use with your students? Yes. All right. All right, all right, all right. Have you seen this video before? Well, most of you must be very attentively working on the video. Yes. So let me know when you're ready, when you're back. All right. Some of you actually asked me questions in the Q&A. And responded to that right now. All right. Are you guys ready? Oh, okay. Well, don't worry, Senj. I will share the links for later, for when you watch it later. Yes? Yeah, no worries about this. Sulema is ready and is back. Okay, Sulema, what do you think about this video? Was it informational? Did it add more information to the things that you knew? She was a very influential woman, says Marcel. Yes, a very influential woman, but we don't know much about her, right? So yeah, this video is a little bit informational. It's giving us some more details. All right. How about the rest of you guys? Great figure. I've never seen it. Okay. Have you learned more things about her? All right. Yeah. I've never heard about her. Suleiman says it actually is very eye-opening. Yeah, it's a little bit different from the Wikipedia. All right. Yeah, we're going to go into that kind of conflict, Irene. Yes, exactly. I didn't know much about her. She was a friend of Socrates. Her story was less known. It's my first time. She was an immigrant. Yeah, exactly. That's another intersection right there. So not only a woman, and you're talking about gender perspective here, but also she was an immigrant in Europe or to Europe, right? So already there you have an intersection, right? When you're talking about minority groups, you need to be open to intersections. Yeah. All right. She was a sophisticated woman. Yes. So, all right. Irene, I'm going to go back to your point right now. I'm so, yeah, I'm so into having to navigate this part with you now, right? Okay. So this is all good for now. Yes, it's all been very positive. We have reanimated the life of Aspasia by working in this way, where you can address intersections like, yes, she was a woman. This is probably why she was not incorporated into history. And also she was an educator, right? That's another thing that you guys have said. So yeah, a very interesting character to know about. Now, the questions that I usually ask my students with this video or after this video is I ask them to describe Aspasia's education, as you can see down here, just below the video. And then I focus or I bring attention on the word hetera. Yes. So what types of freedom did you enjoy as being a hetera? Yes. That word is difficult to pronounce. It has a different origin, right? It has been incorporated into, it has a different root. And so it has been incorporated into English. And the idea is that you can have everyone, navigate into that word, what it means, find the dictionary meanings. And this is what we're going to do right now, right? She was also she was influenced by society, says Hamed. Yes. All right. So I ask my students usually 3 questions about this video. The first one is I want them to describe the education that she received and also the education that she imparted, right? Then I'm asking them about the freedoms that she enjoyed as a hetera. If you watch the video attentively, then you know that she was able to train men in her own house because she was a hetera. So this was someone who was devoted to train men, usually in the arts of rhetoric. So she was a courtesan, she had money, she came from a wealthy family, and so she had other freedoms that other people didn't have. Then the last question is, whose work did she most influence? Yes, and who did she marry? So she was actually married to Pericles. But I'm bringing now attention to this second question that I have here, which now we're going to navigate together. Yes, what is a hetera? Your students usually won't know this word because it's very specific and also it has a different root, right? So what is the meaning of hetera? And now we're going to put this question in tension, and I'm going to share with you 2 potential definitions of this word. And I want you to, guys, check these two entries in two different dictionaries, and we're going to talk about it. Yes, Sench says, well, although I haven't watched the video, but one of my lecturers often made mention of her during our ancient literature lessons. She had a lot going on around her. Yes, very good, Sench. Even though you haven't seen the video, yeah, it's good. This is correct. What you know is correct. So now I'm asking you to find and check out the definitions of hetera in the light of two dictionaries. The first one is the Merriam-Webster, and the second one is the Collins Dictionary. Yes. So Sarah says, what if she hadn't been wealthy? What if she were married? Would she have been so influential? Exactly. It's so very interesting questions to ask to your students, Zara, right? Yeah, it's simple sentences. Absolutely. And those questions are like, you know, so good for a conversation because you are bringing the gender perspective right there, Sarah. So exactly. Was it only because she was you know, wealthy? Well, probably yes, especially at that time, right? But these are questions that maybe you don't want to answer, but you want your students to answer, right? Okay, so two definitions about a hetera. What is the conflict that you guys found there? What do you think? Can you use the chat to tell me? What is the conflict that we find at the linguistic level, at the semantical level? What's going on here? Can you guys use the chat to let me know? What is the difference between one dictionary and the other? What about the Merriam-Webster? How does it define hetera? What about the Collins Dictionary? What is the semantic, you know, weight that they give to this word? You have to pay attention to the semantic sphere, yes. So is there a conflict between these two definitions of the words? Not sure though, but I feel it's more of a thesaurus. Okay, all right. Do you find any kind of conflict between the definition that one dictionary offers and the definition that the other one offers? Her role is not properly described. It seems to be biased. Okay, Alejandra, already. So already you're bringing some tension into this conversation, right? And we have a semantic conflict here. The Merriam-Webster dictionary, yes, places emphasis on her role from a very specific perspective, right? They are talking about her role in court, yes, and they say that she was a courtesan, and that also that she was highly intellectual, and that's the end of the definition, right? Florencia says, one says that the meaning is prostitute, and the other one says that she's a high-class person. Exactly. So we have a conflict of interest here, right? And this is exactly the conflict of interest that you can also find in the historical line, right? So we have a conflict at the lexicography level. And this is also showing, you know, the students that dictionaries are actually made by people and that the semantic value attached to words is obviously negotiated, yes, at the political level. So here you have a real conflict. So she was the hetera. Can I just be, you know, can I just oversimplify things and say that courtesans were prostitutes, right? So this is a conversation that you would have to navigate with your students in a very careful way, right? But the idea is that you're also questioning, you know, the type of semantic value that dictionaries work on, right? Because these decisions are made at the lexicography level, and these dictionaries are consulted by all of us, especially by EFL learners, because we don't know sometimes how words are utilized or how many meanings a word has, you know, and we need more cues about the context in which these words are used, right? So yeah, this is a conflict that you have, and a conflict that you will have to navigate when you are talking about minority groups, right? You have to talk about bias and prejudice, which is still instilled in the minds of people through the use of words, right? So this is nothing but, linguistics, criteria, also semantics. And this is also a rhetorical problem, which is, you know, this, I love these dualities where Aspasia was pretty much, someone who was well versed in the field of rhetorics. And now we have to talk about a conflict at the lexical level, right? So this is also a conflict for the people that have made and make dictionaries, okay? All right, so now we have navigated conflict. I have asked you your opinions about this. You have spotted the conflicts that we have when we are reanimating the life of a person, yes, who was, intentionally forgotten. And now to wrap up, I usually ask my students to create a paragraph, yes, or a summary about all the findings that we have, somehow covered during all of these activities. Yes, so we have talked about video games. Then we brought down the conversation to a more specific spectrum. We talked about a very specific game, Assassin's Creed. We talked about the characters in Assassin's Creed. We talked about Aspasia. We went into the history of Aspasia. And now I'm asking them to write a summary about all of our conversation. When you put pen to paper and you talk about Aspasia, you are finally bringing her to life, right? So this is the power of rhetorics. This is the power of word. If you want to, navigate this game or play this game after this presentation, it's because something still resonates with you about this character, right? And if you have been able to identify with Aspasia at some level, all right, I have already accomplished my goal, because you call that identification, yes? And this is a Burkean trope of analysis. So for those of you who have studied linguistics or rhetorics, you will probably know that the more effective a text is around a group of people is because it resonates with them at a very intimate, it touches a very intimate level, or it touches based on a very intimate fiber, right? So if you feel like you want to do something about Aspasia now in your classes with all of, these ideas that I have shared with you, then you are experiencing rhetorics in the making. Yes, you are experiencing levels of identification. All right, analysis of analysis. Exactly, Ahmed. Yes, very good. All right, you guys. Why have we done all this? Why did I share all this with you? Well, I have two potential answers to wrap up this presentation. So let me bring you back to a very interesting trope, which is used also for research. So when you study the rhetorics of feminist scholars, what they do usually is to tell you about their struggles. And when they analyze the, the work of literature, female authors, they tell you about how they usually work out, their struggle to find a rhetorical space that they have been deprived of. So in other words, when you study the history of minority groups, what you need to understand is that they make a very strong effort to reinscribe themselves in history. So how can we help as teachers to, help them in this process of bringing the voices of minority groups into our class by reanimating those people, as I said before, that we don't know much about? Today, I work about Aspasia. But for example, in Argentina, there is an author that I love, and her name is Silvina Ocampo. And most people don't know about her. And her stories are so good that have been translated into English. And the reason why I love her stories is because they are very simple, easy to follow. And the end is something usually very unexpected. And at the same time, it challenges, male dominance every time. So I love her because, she was able to write very simple stories, but which have a final message, which is, usually very decentering of the most traditional places. So I love her, but she had to live under the shadow of her husband, a very famous Argentinian author, Adolfo Bioy Casares, and also the shadow of her sister, Victoria Ocampo, who was also a very important literature person in Argentina. So already now I'm, just like throwing there a little bit of, my personal love towards this author, Silvina Ocampo. So how do we work with this in the classroom? How do we bring forward the importance of addressing minority issues or minority groups in the classroom? Well, you need to work this way, right? Reanimate people, yes? Go into the feminist rhetorical practices, and you can use this, this investigation trope, which is critical imagination. The idea is that you find something that maybe you haven't heard about. You consider this thing that most people don't know about, something that caught your attention, something you didn't know, and you build a class, in our case as teachers, or you build a paper, or you build a presentation about these places that no one has ever discussed before, or you think no one has ever discussed before. Because, for example, I had assumed that no one knew about Aspasia, and then I found a video game where they know about Aspasia much more than I. So I was like shocked when I learned that Assassin's Creed had done that, right? All right, so the idea is that when you use critical imagination, yes, again, I insist this is a research kind of methodology inside feminism or feminist rhetorical practice. You find something that you don't know much about, you investigate about that, and you share it with your more, with your closer audience. Yes, the idea is that by getting into those deep waters, eventually you will tack out, which means that you will develop a deeper understanding or a deeper vision about an issue that you didn't know much about in the beginning, right? All right, that is the theory that I use for developing these materials. I share with you a very simple class that I developed at some point. I was telling, Eleonora earlier today that, yeah, this is something that I designed because I have all these ideas, in my mind, and sometimes I don't know how to transmit that to an audience. And yeah, I hope that I have, inspire you guys to explore these people that we don't know much about, these authors we don't know much about, in the hopes that you will, join me in this conversation about people who deserve their place in history. All right. All right. All right. So have you guys followed? Do you have any questions? Yeah, you're welcome, Hamed and Sarah. Thank you guys for being here, for bearing with me. Do you have any questions for me? All right, some of you found inspiration. All right, that's amazing. I'm hoping that you guys are bringing Aspasia into your class because she deserves that. No questions, all right?
No
all
questions,
right.
because we are in awe, Ricardo. Because,
Well,
it's what you just posted there in your slides, it's you have opened this possibility of seeing something not previously noticed or considered. So you have opened this to us, you see.
right.
Now we can
Yeah.
see something that that we had not considered before, at least in my case. And when you started talking about Assassin's Creed, in fact, I didn't know it was a video game. I had heard of the movie, and I think
Right.
there have been like 2 movies of, and I guess the movies are based on the video game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the interesting part is that, for example, my students have played the game, but they never got into, they never got to pay attention to Aspasia. And so when they work with me, it's like, oh, I played that game, but I never knew about this. So yeah, when you're involving the students or younger generations, I think that, the message gets even stronger. All right. Yeah.
But
I'm sharing. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to make sure that everyone has, the links that you have shared. And well, we have learned a lot about Aspasia, and I think we should continue exploring that. And maybe we can, do something similar with other video games. With our students love video games, so we need to know which ones they play.
Yeah.
And what characters, appear in these video games. So much we don't know.
Absolutely.
But this, I really love, and also the one you presented, this Gorogoa game too.
Yeah. Well, I usually do Gorogoa. Maybe this is something that I didn't mention, but I usually do Gorogoa because it's a game that my students wouldn't play because it's very intellectualizing. So my students will, no, I don't like that. I don't want to think. But so I usually put them in, out of their comfort zones. And so when they are there, I start talking about the other side of the, side B of video games. So yeah, that's usually why I bring forward Gorogoa, right?
Mm-hmm. And
All
there's,
right.
I think somebody's asking about, suggestions of interesting video games. I can't say much because I'm not a gamer at all.
Well, I think that, when I sent the link to video games, I mentioned, well, actually what is contained there is Steam. Steam is a website where you can find all these types of recommendations about games that you can use in the classroom. So Steam is like a storage of games that you can buy, and then also have obviously free games. But if you are a gamer, what gamers do is go on Steam and see which is the latest game, and they start playing, right? So this is like the house of gamers. And so you need to check there, and you usually get suggestions, right? I took actually a class on video games in my MA, and we were analyzing the narratives of games every now and then. That's why I was like, I am a little bit into that. Yeah, if you want to know more about video games, you need to start where they are, which is the website Steam, right? So you guys should check that. So yeah, thank you guys for this opportunity. Thank you for bearing with me. It was my pleasure. And this is a farewell for me. And I very much enjoyed all this, Eleonora. So thank you. And the US Embassy for sponsoring these talks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, because this is so enlightening, and it's, as I said at the beginning, we can always learn from the journey of other teachers. You see, so we are learning a lot from you, because you have opened up, the possibility of exploring other areas that at least I had not thought of. So right. Thank you very much, Ricardo. Yeah, and I want to thank all the people who joined us today. You have been so active in the chat and participating in all your suggestions, and the tasks that you proposed to us, which are, what we are supposed to do with our students too. So yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. And I want to invite all of you to join us next Tuesday. We are having Laura Giacomini presenting Making Learning Accessible for Students with Special Needs. This will also be a very interesting presentation. Laura will be presenting twice next week, on Tuesday and on Friday at 2:30. So don't miss it. And in the chat, you can also download, there's the link to download your certificate of attendance for today. And well, Ricardo, I invite you, maybe next year we can do something else again together. To everyone, I'm telling you that we are reaching the end of the Teaching Capacity Building 2022. We have September 20, September 23, which is the Friday, and then September 27th. So it's 3 more webinars that I invite you to attend. They will surely be very interesting, and they will resonate with you. So thank you again, and we'll see you soon, Ricardo, and I hope to meet all of you attendees today, next week. Somebody says, my computer is not reading. Can you send to my email, please? Okay, so we are okay. So we'll check your email, Samara. Yes, so we'll be sending you the certificate there. Thank you all, and I hope you have a nice rest of the day. Yeah. If the link, somebody says that the link does not work, the link to download the certificate, please, Marion, if you can post it again. Okay, so thank you again. Yeah. And a huge hug, Ricardo.
Yeah, a huge virtual hug for everyone. Thank you, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.